This first one is a non-intentional grounding call that occurred with less than a minute left in regulation. The Cowboys would have had their drive stalled if an intentional grounding is called. However, an intentional grounding is not called, and they go on to score a touchdown. So we are going to break down if this is an accurate call or if they should have called intentional grounding here. Go ahead and play the clip, Zach.
Oh, there we go.
So the key that we're looking for is that the ball does not cross the line of scrimmage. Dak Prescott is not outside of the pocket. And is there a receiver in the area? The announcers during the broadcast say there's not a receiver in the area, and so they think that there should be intentional grounding. My thing is this. Go back a little bit. Go back to right before he releases the ball. So right here is about where he releases it. And to me, it's about not necessarily where he is in the pocket, because he is, of course, in the pocket, but is he about to get sacked? Maybe, but a defender does not have him by the shoulders or by the legs. He's not a split second away from going down. To me, yes, the ball does not go across the line of scrimmage, and I don't think there was a receiver in the area. This angle, it shows maybe it slipped. Go ahead and play that. The ball does not come off clean, and he's not being hit. He's still got two defenders being engaged by blocks. I don't think this is intentional grounding because I don't think Dak Prescott is in a scenario where he would want to intentionally ground the ball.
Okay, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that angle because you're right. I've seen it happen in which they don't typically call intentional grounding on fourth down because you're not trying to intentionally ground the ball on fourth down, right? If you ground the ball, it's over. You turn it over. So,
Yeah.
But this is first down.
And if he's being hit, if he's got the defender right here on his shoulder, different story. It's like, get rid of the ball to get back to the line of scrimmage. Both the defenders are engaged in a block. I don't think this is intentional grounding because the key word there, like I said, is intentionally.
Yeah, and to your credit, and the announcers did say this on the broadcast, if the ball slips out of the hand, that would indicate that it's ref discretion, right, on whether they call intentional grounding or not. If the ref decides that it is a slip, he's not implored to call intentional grounding. Is that right? How you understand it?
That is correct. Now, if a defender is on him and that's why he doesn't get off a clean pass, that doesn't matter. So if a defender's right here and he's intentionally trying to get the ball out to no one and it doesn't cross the line, that is intentional grounding. But if it's simply just the slip, then yes, it is ref discretion.
And just for context, if the arm is hit and that impedes the throwing motion and the ball comes out awkwardly, that's not intentional grounding. If the arm is impeded and the ball like drops to the ground in front with no receiver in the area, that's not intentional. That's just a QB hit, ball comes out, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. But if he still gets a clean release,
the grounding. Yeah. The intentional grounding comes from if the quarterback is trying to get the ball out to avoid a sack.
Got it.
And I don't think that's the case here.
Okay, interesting. So you don't deem Rashawn Gary here close enough to warrant an intentional grounding foul.
Correct, especially without Dak Prescott looking at him. He doesn't see 52 right there and then try and do a quick release. He's looking to the left the whole time. The pocket, yes, is collapsing, but to me, this is not intentional grounding. Yeah, I'm with the refs on this one.
I tend to agree. It's a really hard call to make, and I often see refs not make the call. Here, I'll move on to our next clip. When it's close like that, just because it's not as common of a penalty, and they don't typically call it unless it's blatant. And I don't think that this was blatant. I think you could almost argue that it was unintentional. Therefore, like you said, it won't get called in that aspect. So I agree with your breakdown. But here is the second call. And I believe this one happened on the Packers drive in overtime when the Cowboys were up 40 to
And now
37.
this is what we're looking for is there pass interference? The call on the field is that there was no pass interference, correct?
That is right. This is another no call. We're breaking down 2 no calls today. So
we see
contact.
Packers clearly want defensive pass interference. We do see contact, a little bit from both players, but we do see contact. So that's the first thing we're looking for is there contact? And there is contact. But I believe we're also looking for is a play being made on the ball. Now, Zach, you've actually got the rules in front of you. Can you read what those rules state?
Yeah, let me snag those. They're right over here. I'll throw the clip back.
You can't know where the ball is, therefore creating contact. You're not going for the ball. So if the ball's up here and I'm going for the ball and I bump in, I'm going for the ball, making a play on the ball. But if the ball's over here and I'm looking this way, then I'm just deliberately making contact with you. So for me, that first item on the prohibited pieces of contact list, the prohibited items list, is where he commits a defensive pass interference.
And you're referencing item A, contact by a player who is not playing the ball that restricts the opponent's opportunity to make the catch. That's
Correct.
the item that you're saying makes
Correct.
this DPI.
Because I am saying that Bland is not making a play on the ball.
Okay. And so I agree with you. When you look at that part of the paragraph, I think it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. The problem is the second part of the paragraph where it says that restricts the opponent's opportunity to make the catch. Let's look at the end here. He gets 2 hands on the football. So can you really, as a ref, when you see Wicks make the back shoulder catch or nearly make the back shoulder catch, can you really say that Bland restricted his ability to make the catch when he gets both hands on the ball and has a really good shot to make the grab?
Yes, because that's happening in a millisecond of time. And when you are bumped over, you are being taken away from your focus. And to me, that contact takes you away from. He almost kind of bumped him into the ball a little bit, is what it did. But if he is not bumped, you can make that argument that like he's not bumped enough to where the physical hands are no longer on the ball, but you are bumped enough that you're no longer focusing on the ball. Your mind is focusing on the contact that was just created. The other angle kind of shows you the sideline angle. I think shows you a little bit more of that as well. The close up sideline one. Do you have that one?
Oh, I
Oh,
have
this one. Yeah, actually.
Is that the one we're looking at?
Yeah, because I think the contact beforehand, right around here, is where he's having that contact. It bumps him. I understand that the ball kind of falls in his hands, but I think that's more of the ball falling rather than him going to catch it.
Gotcha. And what do you say for Dontavian Wicks, who actually initiates the contact? Like they're both hand fighting, but it looks like this is a shove by Wicks. Shove a Bland out of the way. And so item G on the acts that are prohibited state that initiating contact with an opponent by shoving or pushing off, thus creating separation. Wouldn't that be the textbook definition of what Dontavian Wicks does right here? He shoves Bland physically out of the way. He's in line with him, number to number. Bland is now not in line with him due to a shove. Would that not indicate OPI, especially since he has a chance to catch the ball?
Let me see it full speed real quick without.
Yeah, let's go full speed on this close-up angle here.
And you can argue that for sure. To me, this is where I don't see a shove. I see a hand placement. And for the viewers here, I'm more pro Cowboys than I am pro Packers personally. The Cowboys game that I went to a couple years ago was a lot of fun. Zach and I are not really allowed to discuss that game, but I had a lot of fun. I'm pro Cowboys, so if there's any bias here, I'm gonna show bias towards the Cowboys. And so me saying that, and so me going against the Cowboys, or me going against the Cowboys here doesn't show bias here, or going against the Packers here. But at the same time, I see a hand placement, but I don't see a shove.
Okay.
Sorry, I rambled for a second there trying to talk about bias and showing that I'm not biased here. But I don't see a shove. I see hand placement to kind of gauge where he's at and then tries to make a play, but he's bumped.
And it's interesting. I think we're going to end up disagreeing on this one because I think what Bland does here is lays a hand on an opponent that does not restrict him in an attempt to make the ball. And so, yes, Bland makes contact with his left hand here on the body. Okay, we're going to slow this down. The refs don't have access to what we're doing right now. So he's going to lay a hand on the body, but it does not restrict his ability to catch the ball because the ball still hits both of his hands for an extended period of time. He's still able to turn. He's not like restricted in his turn to make the back shoulder catch. And laying a hand on an opponent that does not restrict him in an attempt to make a play on the ball is a permitted act. You're allowed to do that per NFL rules. I think that's what Bland did here. And I think that you could also argue that's what Wicks did with his hand placement. So both players are using that item D in the rule book. We're using hand placement in a permitted way that does not restrict the opponent's ability to make a play on the ball. I think both players did that, and this is a good no call.
And this is I'll make kind of one last counterpoint and then kind of an overall theme that I think you and I can agree on this. Is part of the other reason that I wouldn't call OPI is because I do think that the Packers receiver here is making a play on the ball. He's clearly looking at it. He's putting his hands there. He's making a play on the ball. But Bland not turning his head is why I take away his argument to say I was playing the ball.
Gotcha.
And that is why I say that's DPI. But because you and I are having a good debate with good points within the actual written letter of the law, the tweets that are saying that this is an egregious no call, how dare the NFL refs not make a call here, this is so rigged, I think we've at least put that point to bed.
Sure, definitely.
Because we have two rule experts here that see this differently.
Yeah,
so this is not an egregious no call. Whether it be a good no call or not no call is obviously debatable. But egregious and rigged is just out of the question. I think we can agree on that at least.
100%. This falls well within the gray area that exists when officiating defensive pass interference. Part of the reason why this podcast is named That's DPI, because DPI is the most controversial call in football to officiate. It might be the hardest penalty in sports to officiate because you look at other sports, there's clear lined out definitions of what each foul is. You know what a charge is in basketball. You know what a high sticking is in hockey, but you don't
know where the strike zone is in baseball.
Exactly. And you know where offsides are, and you can actually measure it with electronic technology in soccer, but you cannot have a machine officiate DPI. It exists within gray area and officiating. And so when it's this close and when we're looking at it in slow motion over and over again, and we can't determine whether it's fitting with item D on the items that are permitted or item A and the items that are prohibited, I think that it's okay that it was a no call. And if it was called, I think you could argue for it as well. But it certainly wasn't egregious. And our point still stands last week that the refs are doing a good job. I feel like this call is within the margin of error, especially when there's good points on both sides.
I absolutely agree.